To become a scout and you don't know how to create a scout report, or perhaps you are starting your scouting career and you just are unsure about where you're supposed to put certain things in scout reports. Maybe you don't know how to create your own scout report, so you need some assistance in doing so. So this video is for you. I'm just going to describe to you how to create a basic scout report. So this is the criteria that is typical for a traditional scout report. We'll look at the sections and what to include in each section. So the criteria could be very important, or it could just be something that is additional that needs to go into there. So we'll go through them one by one. My name is Ross Jackson. I am a professional scout. I operate in the Brazil, Sao Paulo region, and my main focus is on players in the under 20 categories. So I'm familiar with players in the academy, in the base academies here in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And I used to scout for Slavia Prague, where we used to pay attention to these talents. So in this video, we're just going to focus on the basic report. I will do extensive videos where we look at other sections such as defensive set pieces, transitions, offensive transitions, what are players doing out of possession, and more tactical things and phrases that will help you in that way and where those phrases need to go. But just for today, we're just going to focus on the basic principles of a player, the fundamentals that we need to include in all reports. So we're going to start off with the physical of the player. So in this section here, you want to try to cover all aspects of the player's physical ability and condition. But first, you want to start with their build. What is their build like? Their body shape, their height, their width, their frame. The frame is the skeletal structure that we typically use in English. And then you want to describe what it looks like. The mobility is very, very important too. How does the player move? So they might be quite stiff and cumbersome, or they might be very swift and light. So you need to appreciate and explain how they're moving, as that will help a coach or sporting director understand more than just the data. The strength. So the strength comes in different ways. It could be upper strength or a low sense of gravity as well. So does the player have a strong core that allows him to keep balance and hold players off using their lower part of their body, or do they have upper strength where they can hold off the opponent with their arms? So we need to go into detail about that as well. Agility. Can the player change direction quickly? Can they turn easily? Is it all smooth for them with these operational ways of moving? We need to explain this because some players may be required to play under pressure, and if they can't turn and are a little bit stiff, then it's a problem. And then the last one, of course, is condition. So you need to really pay attention to the current physical situation of the player. How are they in that moment? Do they look fit and healthy, and are they really fresh? Or are they a little bit tired and probably going to need a break and could have some sort of injury in the future? And what is their injury record like? So you can go for Transfermarkt. I'll show you how to do this later. But you can go through Transfermarkt and have a look at their injury history, or you can go even deeper and you can start to ask people who know, like coaches of the player and people who know the player as well. So let's have a look at how you can use that in the report. Focus on the fundamentals, remember. This is one that I created. I will make a video later showing you how to create your own. But this is just a basic fundamental report, nothing too elaborate. We're going to focus on the player João Pedro. I put in the typical information here. This is the sort of information that's very easy to find and easy to get. Basically, you're just copying and pasting. You can take this from a website like Transfermarkt. You might be present at the game and you know the information in front of you, so you can just put this in here. But it's basically the typical information. It's very self-explanatory. You don't need to have to think too much to do this, and some of the times you can put this information in later. Okay, let's go down to the part that we are focusing on, which is the physical. So I've just, in as few words as possible, said above average height. I tried to get the least amount of words in here to explain his physical height. Slender build with long limbs, which means he covers ground quickly. So here I tried to just summarize what his ability, his strength, his frame means. So his body frame allows him to do this. So try to give a reason if you can. So his frame allows him to hold off opponents. So because he's got long limbs, he can hold off players quite well. Incredible strength on the ball to go around defenders. So again, I showed what he uses his strength for. Surprisingly agile for his body type. So like I mentioned, he's got long limbs, he's quite tall, but he's agile. Can shift body quickly to fool opponents. So he uses some quick shifting of the body to fool opponents, which shows that he can move. And he can move quite well. So missed a few games due to an ankle injury, but he's currently managing 90 minutes. So I showed that he had a little injury, but he's back to normal, which is something that a scout or sporting director will probably just brush over because there's no real history there of him having big problems. It's just a temporary thing. Can spin opponents using clever movement, clever control and movement. So when I say that he can spin opponents, that ties in with the agility and strength. It shows that he has that physical ability to do that. There's other ways as well. You can say that the player gets his body between the ball and the opponent very well. But that's basically things you wish to include in physical, the main points that you wish to include. Okay, so pace or speed. A lot of people tend to write something like he has a lot of pace, the player's pacey, he's quick, and they just try to summarize it up very, very quickly. But we need to go a little bit deeper because there are other factors here to do with speed. Just because a player is fast doesn't mean that that's necessarily a totally positive thing, and he may be weaker in other areas as well. So we want to pay attention to the top sprint speed of a player. This is because they may have rapid recovery as a defender, or they may just be electric in getting in behind the defenders and beating them in 1v1 sprints. So we want to talk about the top sprint speed of a player. Acceleration. Are they explosive? Are they sluggish? So it's another element of speed. A player might be very quick, but he might have slow acceleration, which means that in shorter distances, he's not very fast. So we need to pay attention to that. Long distance versus short runs. Again, if a player can run 60 meters at an explosive rapid speed, then he's good in transitions, right? Or getting in behind. But if he's not, maybe he's very quick off the mark. So the first 10 meters is electric, but after that he kind of stabilizes and doesn't move as fast as other players. So we need to be specific with this as well. And then of course the deceleration process of a player. A player might be absolutely rapid and accelerating speed, but if he can't slow down and control that movement, he may not receive the ball well. So let's have a look at how you can write those in the play report. So here is our pace section. Again, I've tried to include a lot of information here. You might not need to include all of this. This is just so you can see that each section of speed has a sentence for it. So moves swiftly and quickly in sprints. And I just added here that he doesn't have accelerating speed, but he's able to get away from opponents. So I can see here that he's not the most rapid, unbelievably quick player, but he is quick. So I tried to balance it out. And move swiftly shows that he is quick to second balls and things like that. But his strength lies in strength and touch. And he's able to power up his runs and moves with momentum. So he isn't the quickest, but he has strength and a good touch, which helps with those little shortcomings. I wouldn't say they're really shortcomings, but small elements. And he can power up, which means he gets faster and moves with momentum. So some players, they tend to stay the same rhythm, but this player moves with momentum. He goes fast. Short bursts of movement are effective. This doesn't mean that he's explosive, but it means that when he moves, he's moving quite swiftly to the ball. So it's effective at getting the ball or receiving the ball. Controls deceleration well to arrive on the ball at the right time and not overrun. So his deceleration is very good, which means that he's controlling it. So he can receive the ball at the end of a sprint, and he can receive the ball at the right time. He doesn't overrun. He doesn't run too fast. He's not able to. He's able to control it well when he receives it. So those are some phrases you can use with pace. Let's move on to the next part. Our next one, which is for some people the most positive and interesting part to explain, is a technical part. So here with the technical part, you tend to need a lot more information. So in some reports, the pace and physics side will be a little bit smaller, just need a couple of sentences, whereas the technical side will be a lot more detailed. However, this can also be put into other sections like on the ball, which I will include in a later video. But just for now, let's focus on the fundamentals. So you want to talk about the passing, the quality of their passing, how they pass, the dynamic range of their passing. So do they have diagonal passes in their locker? How are their short passes? Consistent, smooth, firm, intricate. There's a lot of words we can use to describe a passing ability of a player. And dynamic is very important. Are they just making simple, basic passes? Is something complex a bit harder for them and they don't manage to pull it off with accuracy? So we need to go into a lot of detail about the passing, if they're in midfield or defense specifically. But if they're a winger, maybe it's not as important. So close control. How's their touch? How's their close control? How's their first touch? What do they do with the ball when they're on it? Are their touches delicate and purposeful? Are they moving the ball in the right place? Are they very considerate with their touches? Or are they clumsy? Are they unable to kind of get the ball down quick enough? And are their touches, or do they take too many touches? Are they not touching the ball with good positivity? So touch under pressure. How's their touch under pressure? Very, very important. Can they maintain possession, retain the ball well, using their technique, not just their strength? 1v1 ability. So there's a lot of things we could talk about here. Are they able to go around players using close control, skills, ability to shift the ball? How's their footwork? Consistency. Some players do have a very, very fine touch of the ball, but then you'll see that under pressure or in certain situations, they can't do it very well. So we want to know if it's consistent in all situations throughout the game. Defensive, tackling and ball playing. So how's their technique in tackling? Is it firm? Is it strong? Is it clean? And the ball playing as well. If it's a centre back or a full back, how's their ball playing ability? Can they get out of the build up? Offensive. So we can talk about things like crossing, their finishing ability, their touches in the penalty area as well, of course. Special skills. So this is something you can add if you see something here that you think that's a bit of an X factor about the player. It separates them from others and it shows that they have some exceptional technique. So it could be a precise diagonal pass. Think of Toni Kroos, something that's very precise and does it with a lot of frequency and consistency. Flicks with the ball, skills that they use, and tricks as well. Also, something you can add here is like set pieces, like free kicks and corners. How's their quality from these dead ball situations, not just live ball situations? So we'll go to the report again and we'll look at some phrases and how you can use these sections here. Okay, so in the report, we've got the technique section here. It might be technical quality, something like that, but it'll be pretty much the same thing most of the time. So with João Pedro, because he's an attacker, a striker, we need to focus on those technical abilities. It's no real use talking about his tackling unless he's incredibly special at it. We need to really focus on the things that make a difference for that type of player. So if it's a midfielder, it's a lot more about controlling the game. If it's a defensive midfielder, of course, it's a lot more about controlling the game and his defensive duties. If it's a fullback, it'll be more about the crossing and his ability to take on players as well from a wide position, and also how they play centrally. But as it's an attacker, we're going to focus more on his final third play. So the first word I used, first sentence here, is I used improvises, finishes well in difficult situations. So that shows his dynamic with his finishing, and he has an ability to adapt. that is a good trait to have for technique. Strong in 1v1s, uses shifty footwork, so his footwork moves very quickly and he moves the ball very quickly with that to beat opponents, and can perform skill on the ball to retain position in tight spaces. He uses like little touches, little flicks, quick touches of the ball into space, just very subtle movements. So I used a phrase like that. Unpredictable on the ball and can go in any direction. So this could probably come into other aspects as well, like intelligence. But I wanted to include it here because it shows that on the ball with his feet, what he's doing on the ball, he can change. And he makes it unpredictable. Long diagonal passes are not his strength. So sometimes you might want to just include something that they're weak at here, just to show that they're not ideal for a situation. So this is not an attacker who can switch play well, but he can break lines with incisive passes and through balls. So if anyone's seen Joao Pedro, he tends to roam in the space between the lines and look for little threaded balls, through balls, and break the lines. So that's a key part. I would put that in strengths if I was going to show you that. I will do that at some point. Offers a range of finishing styles. So I don't list all of them because it's not so necessary to write 10 style of finishes, but I just put loads of different shots from angles, placement on the edge of the area, headers and close range finishes. Try to summarize the things he can do well with his technique, but he does need to work on his consistency. Sometimes he misses some chances, but I hope from that you can see a picture of the player. And remember, that's what we're trying to do here, show a picture of the player. So quite a few phrases here, but again, technique is something you want to pay a lot of attention to. So on to the next section. So this is one of the most interesting parts of a scouting report. You tend to see some people sometimes write a very intelligent player, he thinks fast, things like this. But there's a lot more to the intelligence side of football, and I think you can go very deep with the intelligence of a player. So we're going to look at some aspects here. And the first one is space. Are they spatially aware? So do they see the space around them? What's inside the space? If there's a player occupying it, do they understand it? Can they see it? Do they know where the space will be? Where is it going to open? So are they spatially aware? Time. Do they understand the time? So do they time actions well? When the player needs to understand time, is it because they know how long they're going to have the ball before they receive pressure? Do they know when to move to the ball? Do they know when to run into space? All of these things shows them an understanding of time in football. Do they time actions well? This could be like, do they come inside at the right moment? Do they run into the penalty area at the right moment? Do they follow an attacker at the right moment? Vision. Do they see space, passes, teammates, opponents? What do they see? So can they see everything, the whole picture? Or are they just a little bit more limited to a couple of actions or a couple of things in front of them? Game reading. So it's a reading of situations. So it's knowing which way an attacker's going to go. Do they see the play develop ahead of time? So can they see something happening and get to it before it happens? That could be like a loose ball. It could even be like a goal scoring chance as well. So all of these things about game reading are important. And one of the ones that is incredibly important is decision making. You need to talk about a player's decision making. For an offensive perspective, it's the correct use of the ball. So are they making the right decision, the right pass, the right run, in the right moment? Are they holding onto the ball too much and they're not releasing when they should do? Are they tracking the right attacker as a defender? Are they marking the right space? Do they move at the right moment? So it's about their decisions they do. And defensive, as I mentioned, I didn't quite separate those two, but I think you got it. Off the ball movement. Do they make smart runs? What is their movement like off the ball? Are they just taking space? Are they scanning? What are they doing when they're not with the ball? Are they just occupying a position, rest defense, etc.? So let's go to the report and see how you can use some of these elements. And go down to the intelligence section. As you can see, I've written quite a lot here about Joao Pedro. I do think he's an incredibly intelligent player, which is why I've added quite a lot here. To just summarize it with he's an intelligent player because he does this is probably not enough. As you know, we need to really kind of show all the positive elements and negative elements of a player. So we need to go into more detail. So the first thing I picked up was cleverly draws defenders out using subtle footwork that creates space for his teammates to run into. So with his footwork, he does little things on the ball because he's creating a space. He's making defenders move in one direction. So one thing he does is he likes to shift onto the ball, and that makes the defenders move in another way, thinking he's going to go that way. His teammate runs into the space. So he cleverly draws defenders out so his teammates can move into it. Spots advanced runners off the ball well and can perform through balls. So I put advanced runners here because players close to him is sometimes quite easy to see, and most players will see that. But then can they see the player on the far side, the advanced runner? So the one that's making the real penetrating run. So that's something he does. Uses his time on the ball superbly. So this isn't a player that wastes possession, wastes time. So he doesn't get the ball and just keep it, run that way, run that way, run that way. No, what he tries to do is always set something up, always set the next action up. So he uses his time on the ball superbly. Could probably go into more detail about that in the report. Excellent movement off the ball. So he runs the channels at the right time and knows when to drop to link play. So what is he doing off the ball? What's his movement like? Intelligently moves central and gets between the lines to attract attention. So he sometimes comes from the left into the middle. Defenders follow him and he attracts attention and then looks to thread teammates in with his passes. So that sums up his intelligence in the final third. I could add more to that, like his pressing intelligence, his defensive intelligence, but for now I think that summarizes most of it. So the next section is the mentality. This is quite hard to establish. You might need to do a bit of research, but you need to pay attention to the things that the player's doing on the pitch as well. If they're a substitute, you can have a look at what they're doing. Although on TV, of course, it's going to be very difficult for you to understand, or if you're sat behind the play, again, you're not going to see what they're doing. So mentality is very, very important. And if you are out in the market, you need to be connecting people to understand what the player's like mentally. You'll often pick up things about the player's mentality, whether he likes to have a complaint, or if he really works hard and he's diligent. You'll often pick up those things when you're in and around people who know the player. So the mentality, you need to talk about the character. Are they quiet? It's not a bad thing, but you can say what it means. Vocal, do they talk a lot? Are they a winner? This word often gets used and probably overused, but so you need to determine it. How are they on the pitch if they're a winner? Are they striving to win everything? So if they lose something, do they get angry because they lost it? For example, like a second ball or something. Leader. So a leader on the pitch. What are they like as a leader? The mental toughness of a player. So you might know that if you know the story of the player, they might have had a problem in the past and overcome it. So they may have suffered adversity, and then you can write that in the report too. Like they bounce back from an injury really well. Do they prevail through tough moments? So if they have a difficult moment, maybe they're not playing, and then they find their way back into the team and then they recover. You can include that here. But it could be the little things in the game as well. You know, they could show real mental focus. So they could be focused on everything on the pitch and not lose the distraction. That could be something you could use too. How's a player's leadership? If they are a leader, are they commanding? Are they instructing, telling teammates what to do? Are they organising their team, their structure? And are they motivating as well? Are they helping teammates who may be feeling in a bad moment? Back to the mental toughness part, it could be something as much as like a player misses a chance. How do they deal with the next one? So do they just regain focus and get back into it? Let's have a look at the report. They may use some other phrase here, or in some cases, some don't even use it. They just focus on the actual technical and skills ability. Whether it's a young player, sometimes they do that. But let's say that they do include it in your report. So I put here smart and clever player. He uses his initiative to find solutions. So smart and clever, of course, is part of intelligence, but I just wanted to reaffirm that he is. And he uses his initiative so he can think for himself to find solutions. Some players you'll see that they lose their ability to do anything in a game because when the situation changes or a tactical change is made, they can't think. Whereas Joao Pedro is somebody who tries to find solutions himself. So that is a big mental plus. Has his head screwed on. If you're not an English speaker, head screwed on means that they're focused, they're very down to earth, humble, and they're professional. So they are not somebody who's dreaming that they're better than they are or arrogant. They're very firmly rooted in a sensible way. So he's very focused on his professionalism. So I saw an interview with Joao Pedro, and the way he was talking and things he was talking about made me write this phrase because it showed that he was very focused on his football. A driven player. Now this just means that mentally they're trying to get to their objective, and things are not going to stop them. A driven player who wants to work for the team and improve all aspects of his game, which he has done. So when he was at Watford, you saw he was a raw player that needed to improve, and when he first came to Brighton as well, and he's just increasingly improved. So that shows his drive. He's driven, he's focused, and he's confident on the ball without being arrogant. So he will take the ball past players, which shows bravery and confidence, but it doesn't border into arrogance where he tries to take it past 3 or 4 players. He'll take it past one, and then he'll move the ball into a teammate, which shows that he's very sure what he's doing, but he's not arrogant. So those are some phrases you can use with mentality. If you think of any you can add, you can put them in the comments below. The section that I've included here is work rate. It's a little bit different to mentality because it's more focused on what they're doing with their fitness and their ability to run and do the small tasks that they're required to do. So a player might be mentally strong, but he may not be sprinting backward as much as he should do, helping his teammates out, because he doesn't have that desire to work for his team. He may be mentally strong for himself. So the work rate is all of the things that they do to help their team with their body. So I put here effort. Does the player work? Does he work tirelessly off the ball? So this could be a player who's constantly pressing. He's constantly dropping into shape, the defensive shape. He's constantly covering for teammates. He's constantly sprinting back into defensive positions. So is he doing all of those things? And of course, is he sprinting to get into attacking positions too? Defensive duties. So is he committed and does he stick to marking and positioning? So if he's being given a duty to follow a player around, are they sticking to it? Or are they switching off and then just leaving that player because on one occasion they just don't want to do it, they're too tired? So what is the situation with the player marking and positioning? How are they doing it? Endurance and stamina. So is a player able to sprint relentlessly for 90 minutes, or do they normally have a period where they drop off after 60, 70 minutes? How do they manage with a 90-minute game? And how do they manage with a relentless pressing system as well? Do they get tired after a little while? Or are there somebody who has super fitness where they just keep going and keep going and keep going? So let's have a look at how you can use these in the report. So we have work rate. Didn't put too much here because on some occasions you don't really need to say too much. Maybe it's a little bit about how they operate in the system, like the work they're doing off the ball, and not much else. So tracks back and follows tactical instructions well. So I watched him defensively, and he was tracking back, following runners, closing off spaces. So he's working well. Now, there may be some instances if the player does it 9 times out of 10, but on one occasion he's too tired to run back. So you might want to include that if it's a consistent theme. So occasionally switches off and lets a player get in behind. But in this occasion, I didn't see Joao Pedro switch off. Runs a lot off the ball, that's supposed to say, whether it's pressing or offering runs in the channels. He has strong endurance. So a lot of running here for Joao Pedro, which shows that he's got a high intensity work rate. He's able to have the stamina for the demands of a high pressing team, and that is a good positive. So you want to include those things in your work rate section. Again, it might not be a very big section, and they may include it in as part of the mentality as well, or something else, like off the ball, for example. So you might want to include it in those. We will do those sections another time. So those are all of the elements you want to include in a basic report with the fundamentals. Like I said, you don't need to write as much possibly, and I'll show you how to shorten phrases in another video too as well. So that's a basic scout report with the fundamentals that will help you to really structure your initial scout reports and your scout analysis. So I hope you don't have any doubts about where you're supposed to put things. Please leave comments in the video below if you're not sure about something. I can make a video on that particular element of a scout report. But these are your fundamentals. If you've got any suggestions as well about what you'd like me to cover, please do. I'll be adding more videos on how you can be effective, efficient at scout reporting and writing these reports, and all the tools that you need to do that as well. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you can start to use it in your scout reports. Thanks. See you next time.